Retro.
Hey, this is Catherine Tabor, Senator Padme Amidala from Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to Jay and Dennis on Podcast Stardust. Stay on the light side.
Welcome back to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I am your host, Dennis Keithley. Normally, I'm joined by my friend, Jay, who's the co-host of the show, but she is away at the moment. We hope to have her back in the next couple episodes, so once again, you're going to get me for just an entire episode. I put the call out for some Star Wars questions, and you all came through in a major way. But before we dive into that, I just want to remind you that if you're looking to touch base with the show, we can be found on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. That's the two best places to reach us. So, okay, the dish is lying, the signal's boosted maximum output, the shield's down, we're now broadcasting to the galaxy. And like I said, I put a call out for Star Wars questions. We're going to try a listener question show, the first time I've ever done one of these, and we'll see how this goes. But thanks in advance to everyone that came through, and you all came through in a major way. I've got so many questions to get through. Most of these come from a Disney Parks fan community. Most of them listen to the Be Our Guest podcast. So thank you to all of y'all. I'm not going to get to everything, but I'm going to do my best. First up, I've got a question from Trisha that says, I've recently rewatched The Mandalorian and Ahsoka, and I have a couple of questions. How do you think she'll find a way back? I'm under the impression there is an ancient Jedi temple on Peridea, and that's the power that Balin's skull is looking for. Could there be a gateway back to the known universe? We've already seen the world between worlds. Will that bring them back? So I've got some thoughts on that. If you look closely at the end of Ahsoka, when Balin is standing on top of a statue looking off in the distance, those statues look like the remains of the father, the brother, and the sister from the Mortis arc. And the way that temple is sparking off in the distance is very similar to the way that temple appeared in the distance in those episodes of the Clone Wars. So yes, I do believe that that's what we're going to be finding on Peridea there in the Ahsoka. So how do they get back? Well, there's a couple things that are possibilities. They still have Ahsoka's ship. It's just damaged. And I suspect that can be repaired. And if it can be repaired, then I'm guessing they can find a Purrgil to take them back to the known galaxy. So that's one opportunity. Two, Thrawn was able to get his minions to clobber together a ship that was capable of making it from the second galaxy to the known galaxy, the primary galaxy, the Star Wars galaxy. I don't see why they could not get that information out of his computer on his ship and then launch a rescue mission to get Ahsoka. Doesn't seem like it takes all that long to get back and forth between the two. So there's another possibility. As for World Between Worlds, of course, that is the interdimensional space that we were first introduced to in Rebels, and then it came up again in Ahsoka. Here's something to keep in mind about that. No one has ever left, that we're aware of, the space, the World Between Worlds space, in a manner that's different than the way they got in. So by that I mean, when we were first introduced to this concept in Rebels, Ezra entered a portal through Lothal and left back through the same portal. He, quote-unquote, rescued Ahsoka from Darth Vader by pulling her through a portal, and she went back through that same portal. And then when Ahsoka was experiencing what we believe to be World Between Worlds in the Ahsoka series, she seemed to go in by going over a cliff into the water, and then essentially was pulled out of the water afterwards. So I don't know that you can actually use World Between Worlds to go from one place to another. I think in the end, you have to go out the same way you came in. It's been one of the things that I've been concerned a little bit about with this concept of the World Between Worlds, that authors and other creators for Star Wars might start using it as a way to do all kinds of time travel and ways of changing the past and the future and stuff like that. But I think they've been very clever in the way that they've limited its use so that you're only getting out the way you came in. So we'll see what happens. But I'm kind of betting on either a Purgle or someone from the known galaxy coming back to get Ahsoka. So that's the answer to my question. And sure, you got a lot more questions, and I'll come back to some of those if I got some more time here at the end. Okay. Well, actually, I'm going to incorporate some of your other questions here. You had some parks questions. With launch bays closed, how do you hope they handle character meet and greets moving forward at Disney World? And if you get any scenes of Star Tours, what would it be? Well, as far as launch bay goes, yeah, that basically deprives us of meeting with Darth Vader and BB-8, as far as I know. Kylo Ren's still wandering around Galaxy's Edge, and Chewbacca is always out there, and I have had an opportunity to meet him the one time I went to Galaxy's Edge. I don't get to the parks as often as I'd like to anymore. But I think there's plenty of places you can set them up in Galaxy's Edge to handle meet and greets. You can set up some sort of an awning in a corner and put the characters underneath there, put a PhotoPass photographer there and take pictures. I think that would work out just fine. As for any new scenes for Star Tours, wow. Okay, so it's been a while since I've been on Star Tours. The last time I was there was 22. And I think I got the Rise of Skywalker scene for the first time. Man, what else would I add? I'm going to come back to that because the next question I've got is from Paul. And he's asking, if Disney were to build a Star Wars park, one can hope, and the central hub was the world between worlds, so there's another reference to that, there would be a resources limit to how many worlds times etc. they could connect to. Okay, so he's putting a limit on me here. What 4 to 5 lands in the Star Wars universe would you have the world between worlds connect to in the Star Wars universe timeline? So I am absolutely fascinated by this question, and I could probably spend 30 minutes on it alone. But let me think about this. I'm going to think out loud for a second. So I'm going to try and stay away from whatever we've got in Galaxy's Edge right now, and I'm going to try not to duplicate the experiences. But that's going to be really tough. Similarly, Star Tours, as Trisha was just asking about, is also going to be tough because I want to try and avoid duplicating experiences that are on that attraction. And then I'm also not just thinking about lands. I want to think about what kind of attractions, what kind of restaurants, what kind of lounges, kind of character meet and greets we can pick in these lands, because I don't just want to have an empty land. I want to have things that are there. So I got to consider that. And thinking ahead to this, I'm thinking mainly along the lines of what we've seen in the 9 saga movies. And here's why. One, I don't know that the average member of the Star Wars community that would be interested in this park, more people are going to know the movies than they're going to know what's on Disney Plus. But that doesn't mean you can't pull things from Disney Plus there. Every week they do that already. You can find the current version of Boba Fett wandering around from time to time, and Ahsoka's been there. The Mandalorian's been there. So those characters do show up in Galaxy's Edge. Also, I like this idea that I'm not tied to one time. And so I am kind of going to pull inspiration from Avengers Campus and saying that we can move around in the time in any one of these lands if it makes sense to do so. And so there's a couple specific lands that would make the most sense in. And I'm also not going to try and make everything an e-ticket attraction. Every park has to have some, but they also have to have other things for people to do that aren't going to require an hour and a half to a 2-hour wait or a $25 lightning lane pass. So with those things in mind, first planet I'm going to do is indoor. And why? Because I want to do the speeder bikes on this. So you can set it up as some sort of a roller coaster if you want, but I want speeder bikes. This is one of the most fun things I did as a kid, was riding my bike through a neighborhood park that had some trails and pretending I was on speeder bikes after I saw Return of the Jedi. So I want that experience, but I want it the real thing. And you can set it up like Tron if you want. You can stagger out the cars a little bit more, so it's a bit more of a personal story if you want to do it that way. Beyond the speeder bike, the other attraction I'd want to put in there is something to do with Bright Tree Village. So, of course, that is the Ewok village. I think it'd be fun to be able to climb up in that, do some of the pathways, the ramps, whatever, some of the swinging vines, and Imagineer far more talented than I could design something spectacular around that. As for what else we could find, of course, the Ewok Village, complete with meet and greets from the Ewoks, R2-D2, 3PO, and it would have a barbecue location because, hey, they were getting ready to barbecue Han Solo, so why not go ahead with that theme? Just don't do Han Solo. And then you would also be able to wander back through the past and find the Lampa-class shuttle, similar to what brought Luke, Han, Leia, and the droids, and Chewbacca there. And, of course, you'd be able to find the Imperial bunker. And here's what they have to do. They have to figure a way to put the unfinished Death Star 2, in the sky somewhere. So that needs to be hanging there so that we can see it. They can make an island float in Avatar Land, Pandora. They can put a Death Star in the sky and hide it from the rest of the park. I'm counting on them. They can do it. All right, that's land number 1. Land number 2, also a bit of a no-brainer, Hoth. And you would come through the portal. You'd be someplace in Echo Base. Meet and greets here would be Leia, Han, Chewbacca, and Luke in their Hoth gear. You would be able to find the 2-1B droid, the medic droid. There would be briefing rooms. There would be a big hangar with the Falcon. I know we've already got that in Galaxy's Edge, but you also have snow speeders, maybe some X-Wings and the like in there. So again, you get to come into this hangar. These are places that I've always wanted to go. I always wanted to see. I love Galaxy's Edge, but if we're talking about places from the movies, these are the places I definitely have always wanted to go. First attraction is going to have something to do with Tauntauns. I don't know exactly what, but we're going to get onto a Tauntaun and we're going to patrol the snow. And maybe we get to go through a cave and avoid a Wampa. Or maybe we get to run by and get pursued by one of the probe droids that the Empire sent there. But the idea is we're riding a Tauntaun. And the inspiration for this is the Flight of Passage ride from Avatar. A little bit more limited because you're on Tauntaun. You're not flying around like you are on a Banshee in Avatar. But that's the inspiration. Again, I know I didn't want to make everything an e-ticket attraction. And then I've already got at least 2 here, but here we are. And then I don't know how you do Hoth without doing some sort of battle with the AT-ATs on this. So make that however you want to make it, but you got to go out and fly around the AT-ATs, launch a tow cable, knock one of them over, and then the whole thing has to end and you're heading back to base, and then you see the X-Wings take off and the ion cannon fires some blasts up into the sky to knock out one of the Star Destroyers so that the rebels can get away. And then you get a big hooping and hollering from the rebels over your radio as that happens. So that's my second attraction there. As for dining, the only thing I'm really thinking here is some quick serve locations. So something like the commissary there where the grunts go to pick up their meals. Of course, we'd make it more attractive food than what you're likely to get in the base on Hoth. Okay, so that's 2. Land number 3, Naboo. And I'm thinking more specifically around Theed Palace, which we got to see in The Phantom Menace, and then bits of it in Attack of the Clones and at the end of the special edition of Return of the Jedi. Character meet and greets. They're going to include Anakin, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, R2-D2, Jar Jar Binks and other Gungans, some of the members of the Trade Federation, Darth Maul, and Queen Amidala. You can have them all in this palace and around the palace. So attraction 1 would be Take Back the Palace. This is inspired by the end of The Phantom Menace. It's going to be some sort of a shooter type of a thing. So you can think Midway Mania. You can think the Spider-Man attraction that's out in Disneyland and the Avengers Campus right now. But you're going to be in a car. You are being shuttled around the palace and you are taking out battle droids. And it doesn't have to be just the standard B1 battle droids. We can throw in some other stuff there to be imaginative as well. Some droidicas and the like. And while you're taking back the palace, you'll get an opportunity to wheel past Darth Maul as he fights off Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. So that's attraction number 1. Attraction number 2 is Through the Planet Core. And again, this gets its inspiration from that scene in The Phantom Menace when they go underwater and they are trying to get from the swamp to Theed. And it's going to be a little bit maybe like the Living Seas over at Epcot, where you board or I guess it's now with Nemo and Friends, but you board a car and then you get to see some fish and stuff like that. And everything's going smoothly until the OPC killers shows up. And then, of course, this would not be complete if we didn't have the Sando Aqua Monster, the bigger fish that's there, show up as well. Dining location for this, we are talking about table service, maybe signature dining, and this is going to be Theed's Royal Banquet Hall. So I'm kind of pulling some inspiration from the Beauty and the Beast restaurant that they have over at Magic Kingdom with that, but maybe just a slightly bit more upscale. But I think that could be fantastic. Okay, location number 4, Cloud City. And I was trying to decide between this and Coruscant, but I went ahead and went with Cloud City. The concern with Coruscant that I have, and believe me, I would love to go there and I wouldn't balk if they did it, is simply that it's all skyscrapers. It would be huge. I think it would blot out the sun for everything else. I don't know how exactly it would do it, unless you start off at like one of the top levels and they give us the forced perspective to give us the illusion that we're looking down on everything. But anyways, I'm going with Cloud City. Character meet and greets would include Lando, Lobot, Boba Fett, other bounty hunters, Darth Vader, stormtroopers, and the like. Attraction number 1 would be the twin pod cloud cars. These are those little orange ships that were flying around Cloud City. A couple of them escorted the Falcon in at the beginning of the Empire, or in the middle of the Empire Strikes Back. And so think people mover as you fly around and you see the sights on Cloud City. Attraction number 2. This is the carbon freezing chamber. This is going to be some sort of a drop attraction, kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy, what do they call it, out in Disneyland? I can't remember, or the Tower of Terror. And you're going to have go up and you're going to see Han getting shoved into the carbon freezing chamber. You'll get to see the moment where, Leia says, I love you. And he says, I know. Chewbacca's going to throw a fit. And then you drop, except for you don't get frozen. But you're going to have some scenes where you see other things going on as they attempt to escape. Why did I pick this? I'm just trying to differentiate this so that not all the attractions in this land are the same thing. Some sort of a racing attraction or a roller coaster attraction. We have to have some sort of variety. And yeah, this is where I figure the drop attraction fits in. But you all can let me know if you disagree. And then as far as dining here, 2 things come up. One, I am calling the Tabana Club. And this is going to be something like GO82 out at Epcot, which I haven't been to, but it is the club that's now built into Spaceship Earth. But I can see Lando having some sort of a private club like that, which would be fun. And you could have a great view out into the city and the clouds and the beautiful orange sunset and the like. And then we're going to have Lando's table. Again, how can you not? This is where Han, Leia, Chewbacca, and 3PO showed up, or what was left of 3PO. Well, actually, he wasn't there at the moment. Only to get betrayed by Lando, and Darth Vader and Boba Fett came in. Could be all kinds of fun character interaction here if you did it right, but somewhere between a signature dining experience and just a regular table experience. Okay, so that's Cloud City. My final location is, and I just don't know how you build a Star Wars land that's going to pull from the movies without including this, so I'm including it, and that's Tatooine. And the beauty of it is that there's so many different eras that Tatooine appears in that you've got a really great scope of who can show up there and when. So, from our classic original trilogy era, you've got Jedi Master Luke, Leia, Han Solo, Chewbacca, Lando, and Return of the Jedi, Bib Fortuna, Jabba the Hutt, Boba Fett, Alec Guinness. And then from the prequel era, of course, you got Anakin, Qui-Gon, Sebulba, Padme, Captain Panako, Watto, other pod racers, and the like. And then you can even go to the Disney Plus era and have that version of Boba Fett and Fennec Shand and other characters. Cobb Vanth could show up there. So this is a lane where you could have a lot of variety. The lounge, this is a gimme. The Mos Eisley Cantina. Who wouldn't want to go in there and sit down and have some drinks? You can have the band in the background playing the modal nodes and doing their thing. And then for a more of a sit-down location, I am thinking the Daimo's table. And this would be in Jabba's palace after Boba Fett took over. And I'm thinking of those scenes from the Book of Boba Fett where he's invited the other gang leaders in. They're having dinner around a very large table, and the Rancor is below them, and occasionally he roars and shakes up the whole place. And so you'll have droid servers, you'll have alien servers, a lot of theming going on here, but also seems like a great idea to me. I'd love to eat there. As for attractions, you're on Tatooine. How can you not have a pod race? Of course, the downside of this is you've already got the pod race and Star Tours. But I am thinking of something even bigger and grander. Think Radiator Springs from Disney's California Adventure. Let's get a huge race going on. You can have alternative parts of the path. You can have different racers win. You're not limited to 2 cars. You could put like 4 or 5 out there at a time and have everyone race against each other. Of course, the trouble is that the typical pod racer only has 1 person on it. But hey, Imagineers, they can put 4 or 5 people per car. So that's my vote for 1 attraction. Attraction 2, Escape from Jabba's Palace. And I'm drawing inspiration from the Haunted Mansion for this one. So you enter here, and the next thing you know, Jabba's throwing you in a dungeon, and then you escape from a dungeon, and some of the monsters that are in the dungeon, you get up to Jabba's throne room, and he sends you down to see the Rancor, and the like. Lots of scenes like that where it's scary-ish, in quotes, but it is all about that type of experience where you're finding the Easter eggs, and we're getting some great John Williams music as we go along. So those are my 5 lands. Others that I considered, Ahsoka, of course, that's where Luke was hiding out at the end of The Force Awakens and in The Last Jedi. That could be fun. I think the problem is with having an island is surrounding the whole thing with water and not ruining the illusion by having it run up against a berm or one of the other lands. Mustafar would be another great opportunity. That'd be a villains-centric location, but of course, you could do something with a lava flow on that one for an attraction. The dining aspect of it was a bit more challenging. Canto Bight would be fantastic. Of course, you could have the racing of the Fathiers there, but if we're going to do racing, I'd rather have speeder bikes. But dining and lounges and shopping would be big if you wanted to do that. I already talked about Coruscant a little bit. Jakku, I threw that in there. I just love the scene where Rey and Finn are in the Falcon and, they're racing away from those 2 TIE fighters. But again, we have a Falcon attraction in Galaxy's Edge. So do we need 2? I don't think so. Lothal for the Rebels fans. Lots of things happen there. You could have secret Jedi temples. You could have the capital city. You could have the foundries that are building TIE defenders and the like. Lots of possibilities. And then Peridia. I just don't know how much we can do with that yet. That would be an idea that needs to be developed probably after season 2 of Ahsoka. Okay. So, wow, like I said, I could probably do more on this, but I need to move on. Question number 3, and this comes from Steph KG in NJ. I'm assuming that's New Jersey. She says, I grew up with the original movies and know that storyline the most. I have seen all the Star Wars movies and all the live action series on Disney+. I'm not a huge fan of animated series, but would be willing to try, and I enjoy reading. So my question is, where would I start to expand my fandom? Is there a certain book to start with or animated series to try? Wow. Okay. Great question. This is also one that I could probably do an entire episode on, especially if I had Jay here to help me answer it. Man, where to begin? See, the reason why this is a difficult question to answer is that I don't know what about the movies and the live action series that you enjoyed the most. And if I knew that, then I could help direct you. As far as books go, you have to understand that a lot of the books that came out in the 90s and the early 2000s were relegated as legends. So they don't count as part of the current story. They haven't torn them all up or anything. You could still read them if you enjoy them. And I still have my copies of all those. But they reset the canon back in about 2012 or 2013. I can't remember. And so they've been releasing a lot of new stuff since then. Most of the books, I should rephrase that. There's not a lot of books that take place during the original trilogy. They largely left that up to comics. But there's a lot of books that take place in the prequel area and between the prequels and the original trilogy, and some stuff that takes place after the original trilogy and before the sequel trilogy. Okay, so this is getting complicated. I think one of the best places to start would be to start watching the Clone Wars. Now, the trick with that is that, like a lot of TV shows, it takes some episodes for that really to settle in and for you to really get a grip with all the characters. Ahsoka is huge, but a lot of people didn't like her at first when we first got introduced to her in the Clone Wars. But she's become one of the most popular characters in Star Wars. And this is where we get to meet her as a teenager, as Anakin's Padawan. And once you've done that, there's a lot of great books out there. One that occurs to me is Dark Disciple. And that has to do with one of the villains from the Clone Wars, Asajj Ventress. And so she evolves quite a bit. So yeah, Clone Wars is a great starting point. If you don't want to spend a lot more time with that, if you're more interested in something that's closer to the original trilogy, Rebels is a great animated series. It's a bit more digestible. It only has 3 full seasons and then a half season on the 4th one. And you get a lot of introduction to some other characters, especially the characters that showed up in Ahsoka. So if you enjoyed that live action series, then you're going to get to meet and get the development of a lot of the characters that are introduced, that were originally introduced in Rebels. So that's an idea. As for other books, I'm just trying to think here. I am very fond of a lot of the stuff that's out there. They just completed the High Republic Publishing Initiative, which is a series of stories that take place, about 150 years before the prequel trilogy. So you've got all brand new characters, and it's a very engrossing story. The first book in that series is Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. And so if you want something different, that's a good way to get into it. But if you're trying to build off of something you already know, then again, I'd start with some of the television stuff. There's an Ahsoka book that's really good. And I'm looking at my bookshelves trying to figure out exactly what I would recommend here. Oh, one that features Obi-Wan and Anakin, Brotherhood by Mike Chen. That's a good one. That would have some stuff that you're familiar with. That would be a good starting point. Catalyst is a prequel to Rogue One, written by James Luceno, who was one of my favorite Star Wars authors ever. He also wrote Tarkin, which is about Grand Moff Tarkin. And I guess that should have been obvious. But yeah, it's kind of, I think what I would do if I were you is I would pick out the characters I like best from the movies and then search their names on Amazon or something like that and see what you come up with books. And then if you need guidance, hey, feel free to hit us up on our social media or go to Discord and ask some people that, be able to let you know what of those books are good or not. So there's lots of possibilities out there. I'm afraid this is just not going to be a specific number answer, but it's one of those things you kind of have to talk to the person to kind of help guide them because there is just so much. The good news is I don't know that there's any one perfect starting point. So hopefully that encourages you a little bit. All right, I got time for one more question here. So I'm going to end with WW Dad Mark, who asks, what characters would you love to see from the 90s Legends books brought over to canon? Okay. Man, I should have just done one episode on all these questions here. I could have done it. All right. Well, let's think for a second here. I think perhaps the most famous character that was introduced in Legends that has not appeared in the current canon is Mara Jade. And she, of course, was the Emperor's hand, and then she developed a relationship. Well, she married Luke in the Legends books. And she was just incredible. She was awesome. I love that character. The question is how do you bring her into the current canon? Because as far as we know, Luke never got married, and there's enough stories out there from his appearances in The Mandalorian to some other books. There's the Adam and Christopher book, Shadows of the Sith. That's a good one, Steph, if you're still listening. If you want a book that takes place between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, another Luke and Lando adventure, that's a good one. That's out there. So, but anyways, the point is that Luke has shown her enough places. I don't know that we can necessarily work Mara in that way. That's not to say that she has to have the same type of story that involves Luke, but that's what she was in Legends. She started off this assassin, and the last order she had was to kill Luke Skywalker, and it didn't go that way. But she's cool. A lot of people love her. You can go to any convention and you can see a lot of people cosplaying her. So I think she would be a spectacular introduction. I mean, the same book that introduced her was Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn. And that's where he met Grand Admiral Thrawn. And so he's part of the current canon. And he's had several canon books written about him. So why not her? Also from that book. Oh, here's one that I'd love to see. Talon Card. He was, I don't want to necessarily call him a Lord of the Underworld because he was a bit different than that. He had his own smuggling and types of enterprises going on, but he wasn't kind of like a Jabba Sleazy type character. I just found him to be really cool. I liked his story. That would be a character that I think would do really well in the current canon. That you could have he could be an information broker. He could be getting things for people. You could set him anywhere you wanted during the original trilogy, during that era between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy. That'd be a cool character. Jay and I are really big fans of the Darth Bane trilogy. So Darth Bane and Darth Zana would be incredible characters to bring in. Give us Old Republic stories and start it off with them. Or you could go even further back in time and bring in Revan. If you have not played Knights of the Old Republic, you can find that game for next to nothing now online. Get it for your computer, play it. They're making a new version for consoles, and I think the PC, I have no idea where they are in that stage of that. It's gone through some ups and downs. It's had some development problems, but they're eventually are going to get a new version of that game out for current consoles. But that character was fantastic. One of my favorite gaming experiences ever was playing Knights of the Republic and getting into Revan's story. So it's I don't want to spoil anything, but you got to check that out. So those are some of my favorites. If they hadn't gone with Rey and Ben Solo, then I definitely would love to have seen the next generation of Skywalker. So Jaina, Jacen, and Anakin Solo, along with Ben Skywalker. Love those characters in the books. They had complicated stories. Them and their friends, that generation of Jedi, were all pretty cool. So yeah. So I didn't really narrow it down all that much. And then I guess one more, Darth Plagueis. We got to see a tiny bit of him at the end of The Acolyte, but speaking of James Luceno, he wrote a great book about Darth Plagueis. I don't need that book brought in wholesale, but some of those ideas would be fantastic. Okay. Well, that's it. That's what I got time for today. I love this. Thank you all so much for the questions. I apologize for any of the questions I did not get to. If you guys enjoyed this, then please let me know, and I'll try and do another listener question sometime in the future. And if you want to leave questions, I'll be giving our social media contacts here in just a second, and you can leave them there. Also give our email address, which I haven't been giving out for a while, but you can email them there, and we'll try and put together another listener question in the near future if I can get enough questions to do so. But with that, thank you all for listening, and I hope you enjoyed my answers and my discussion of some of these topics. And if you've enjoyed the show, I would hope you consider subscribing to the podcast on your podcatcher of choice. And if you could do me a great favor, take just a few seconds to go over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review the show, or rate it on your podcatcher of choice. Those type of things help get the show in front of more people, and the more people, the better. So if you want to catch the entire back catalog of what we got beyond the 1 to 200 shows that are likely to show up on your podcatcher, head over to retrozap.com. Everything that we've done is there, along with some other great shows that are on the network covering a lot of other fun topics. And if you want to reach us, again, we are on social media, Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. Our email address is podcaststardust@gmail.com. And you can find us over on Pinterest. Jay has set up some boards there. I just don't use Pinterest, so I'm not really sure what's there, but she keeps up with those. The show is also available on YouTube and YouTube Music. It's audio only both places, but for whatever reason, they publish it twice. And if you're looking for some Podcast Stardust merch, mainly t-shirts, you can head over to TeePublic. We got all the different show logos available on your t-shirt color of choice, and a few other type of projects, stickers and things are like as well. And everything purchased over there goes towards supporting the show. Upcoming on the show, I'm not sure. I was talking to Jay earlier. She may be back for the next episode, and so we're going to figure out what that is. But once she's back, we'll be getting back into our usual routine. We still have an episode of our Revenge of the Sith series to go this month, maybe World Between Worlds, which is our Star Wars fashion and lifestyle review show. We're going to be finishing up our Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy Pieces of the Past series here in a bit, and we're going to be covering Star Wars Visions, which comes out at the end of the month. So lots going on Podcast Stardust in the next month or two. But with that, just want to say thanks again. Appreciate you listening to episode 954 of Podcast Stardust. Have a great week, and until next time, may the Force be with you.